Think about it. 5 years ago, a startup could put an idea on a piece of paper and go and raise
My
$100,000.
Those
It's not
days.
that way anymore.
No,
That's
it's
changed.
not.
Right. You're looking at people who are bootstrapping, or they may be lucky enough to have friends and family who believe in them and can fund them for a little while. But it's a much tougher journey than it was 5 years ago from the aspect of raising money. Now, there were a lot of startups back then who raised a lot of money and they never run a budget. They never ran a company before. They didn't run a budget. They didn't have the accountability.
This is The Ramblings. Hey, Ramblers, before we start today's episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest episodes, interviews, and all things startup. This episode, like every episode before it and after it, is brought to you in part by OffSource, your affordable one-stop solution for outsourcing all of your office work. If you or your team are constantly waitlisting important tasks for any reason, you're doing your company a disservice. Get the support you need by outsourcing to OffSource tasks like HR support, admin, bookkeeping, social media, graphic design, web design, and so much more. You can go to the link in the description and visit offsource.tech. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I am your host, Angelo Roberts, and I have today with us Scott Kallick. He is an angel investor business advisor. He is actually invested in Entree, who I actually did a podcast with a while ago now. At this point, it feels when Entree first was starting out, I did a podcast with their founder. And so Scott today is going to be talking about a lot of different things. I think we're in for a powerful episode. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing great. I would like to say I'm in sunny Snowmass, Colorado, but it's not so sunny. And the only thing we like more than sun here is snow.
Give us a little bit about what you do, who you are. Give us that little bit of background about some of the things that we're going to be learning from you today.
Sure. What I'm doing now is I'm a profit acceleration specialist. So I work with companies in the $1 million to $15 million space. I have a 22-point program which helps companies grow their top and bottom line quickly, painlessly, and without spending a lot of money on marketing. I love working with entrepreneurs to help them get to the next level. And in my personal background, I started my first company in my late 20s. It was a long time ago. I'm way past that, but I grew up in Chicago. I bought a small little boutique company in Pittsburgh, and I moved there with my new bride, and we started a boutique company.
Was she from Pittsburgh?
She was not. She was from outside of Cincinnati. When we met.
How did you end up in Pittsburgh?
I found a company. And we moved there to run the company.
Okay.
My thought was, hey, I'm going to do this for about 5 years. I borrowed some money. I figured I'd pay down the debt of the company and have a nice nest egg. I moved back to Chicago and be with my family. And as it turned out, I learned something about myself, and I learned that I was a builder. As I started the whole journey, I wasn't really interested in paying down my debt and cashing out. I was really interested in growing my company. And so that's what I set aside. That's what I set on doing day by day, and incrementally growing my company every day. I would wake up and I'd go out. I'd knock on doors. I'd make calls. I'd get new clients, and we grew. And over 25.
What was it that you were doing?
I was in the coin laundry business. I bought what was called Route Laundry. We operated laundry machines in apartment complexes and colleges and truck stops and fraternities and all kinds of places. And I realized by myself I was a builder. I wasn't interested in cashing out. I was interested in building a bigger company, a better company. And that was my mission for 25 years. And after 25 years, we had 15x our company. We had 50 employees. We had a great reputation. It was really something. It was really the highlight of my life to do something like that, to build a company. And circumstances after 25 years dictated that, hey, it's time to cash out. My marriage had not flourished. I'd ended up getting divorced from my wife, and we were running a company together, and it got really difficult. So it was time to cash out. It's time to sell and I think fortunately in our industry, there was cycles of consolidation and we hit the right cycle. We sold the company, sold to a multi-billion dollar company. I took a position as an officer of their company. I decided I wanted to see what corporate life was all about. And I walked away pretty unimpressed with the whole situation. I was not really aligned with the decisions they were making. And I was probably pretty vocal about it. And that didn't play well as a corporate person. So it was time for me to leave. I stayed for 4.5 years. I've talked to several accountants since then, and they said, you lasted how long? So I've never heard of anybody lasting 4.5 years after selling their company, but I did. And then it became time for me to decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because retirement for me is a 4-letter word. It just doesn't align with who I am. So I went back to school and I got a coaching certification. I started working with a lot of startups, which is how I got connected with Entre. And then about 1.5 years ago, I pivoted and I started working with more mature companies because I felt like I wanted more stability in the people and the companies that I was working with. So I've pivoted now to a platform where I can really help companies move to their next plateau and grow and reach their goals very quickly, relatively quickly.
Wow. So you have been able to grow a company, exit, work in corporate for 4 years, and oh my gosh, and still invest, and you still want to keep going. When you found out that you were a builder, did you stay in Pittsburgh for those entire 25 years?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I still maintain a home in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So that's where I built my life. That's where I had 2 kids. I built my life. They're both still in the educational system, graduate school and finishing up undergrad. Pittsburgh is it's a nice city. It's a nice place to raise a family. There was probably about 10 or 15 years where I said, you know what, I'm going to get back to Chicago. I watched my parents get sick and pass away eventually. And during those times, I yearned to be back with them, but it just wasn't in the cards. So yeah, I've stayed in Pittsburgh, and before COVID, I ended up buying a place out in Colorado because I love it out here. And I was planning on spending 4 or 5 weeks a year here, but when COVID happened, we spent a whole winter here. And my wife and we said, hey, why would we want to be anywhere else? So
Steelers fan?
I have to cop to the fact that I'm not. I'm still a Chicago Bear fan. Long
Ah,
suffering, long
okay.
suffering, but loyal.
I like that. Now, in that entire time of building a company in 25 years, we don't have a lot of entrepreneurs that have that kind of level of experience, especially that we're able to exit and then still are hungry to do something like that. What would you go back and change about the process during that 25 years of building your company?
Thank you for asking that. I think what I've learned and what I'm doing now is there's room for a business owner to be compassionate, to really lean into their employees. I always felt like I had a pretty good relationship with the people who work for us. There's people I still keep in touch with and take out to dinner when I get back to Pittsburgh who work for us. But I think looking back on it, there was a lot of room for me to grow. I would come to work almost every day, head down, knowing what I needed to get done, completely focused. And I could have deviated a little bit and brought some time every week just to bring in an employee into my office and talk to them and say, hey, what are your goals? What does success look like for you? What do you really want to hear? I think I could have created a better culture. And then that's something that I work with companies to do, because that's what holds people with you. Once they understand your culture, once you bring them into it, once they start living, that's what holds them.
I like that, because not everyone understands that you have to invest in your people. One of the things that you had mentioned is like you would have gone back and said, how could I help you achieve your goals? And that's one of the things I like to ask when I'm onboarding is, how can I help you achieve your goals? Because I know that your vision wasn't to initially end up here. You probably maybe thought about going to Google or a bigger company at this particular point, but I know it wasn't to be here. So how can I help you get to the next level? When did you realize that was something that if you could go back, you would change? What was the aha moment that if you were like, That's what I could go back and change. And that's because you had the answer pretty quick.
Yeah, it wasn't until after I sold my company and I went through a coaching program and I took on a lot of personal growth at that point. And that's when I really said, "Oh, you know what? This is what was missing for me. This is what I don't want other people to go through their entrepreneurial journey without. This is the growth that people need. This is what makes a better culture for the company, for the business world, for the world in general. Think about it. The average employee comes to work, and now a lot of them are virtual, but even you're working 40 hours a week, 2,000 hours a year. If you can improve that experience by 10% or 15%, think of how they interact with your customers. Think of what they bring to your workspace. It's a different experience.
It is. Now, you've been through a lot of different cycles, having invested, worked in corporate, and grown a business, realizing some of the mistakes you made. How do you take that forward in what you're doing now? Because you're not necessarily in the exact same role, but you're advising other people to do that. What are some of the things that you're advising based on the experience that you've learned?
First of all, I get people to um, really get focused on their vision. But there's three things that have become clear to me. There's the what, the why, and the how. The what is who you are and what you're doing. The why is what's your purpose? What does it bring to people? How does it change the world? And a lot of people really get focused in on the how, and it stops them because they don't know. If you look at the what and the why, and you put the how aside for a minute, subconsciously you start to work on that. You start to understand, okay, you know what? I see a path to get there. And that's where the real growth for an entrepreneur, a business owner, really starts to happen.
Wow. Okay. Now, in regards to the companies that you've worked with, what are some of the common problems that you're seeing? And how would you consider that advice in relation to the common problems that a lot of the startups that you're seeing face?
It's
Because a lot of people are the how people, the builders. Like you said, you found out that you're a builder, the how. I know I can do this, but a lot of people don't necessarily know that one.
that's the mindset. It's the one common thing I've found in startups is there's a mindset of scarcity. It's I don't have enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough clients. I don't have enough referral partners. So if you flip that switch and you start working through abundance, and you say, yeah, I can, and I do, and I am enough. That's a great start for startups face a huge uphill journey. Think about it. Money, people, they don't have a lot of these things. And right now, 5 years ago, a startup could put an idea on a piece of paper and go and raise $100,000. It's not that way anymore.
No, it's not.
Right. You're looking at people who are bootstrapping, or they may be lucky enough to have friends and family who believe in them and can fund them for a little while. But it's a much tougher journey than it was 5 years ago from the aspect of raising money. Now, there were a lot of startups back then who raised a lot of money and no business raising that kind of money. They never run a budget. They never ran a company before. They didn't run a budget. They didn't have the accountability. So, there were a lot of those, and that's why, that's one of the reasons things have righted themselves a little bit. And we've gone back to the old days where you had to hustle and you had to bootstrap and you had to get things moving. And now, unless you're $1 million to 3 million ARR, it's really and even that, it's really difficult to raise money.
Back when you started raising a business, you were in the laundromat. People don't necessarily consider laundromat business a VC backable kind of startup company. It's a sweat grind, small business kind of thing. Now, both of my parents are from the small business. My dad's in real estate. My mom with a mental health facility. They just pure small businesses. If there was any money, maybe from the bank. And that's how a lot of businesses were built. Now, what would you say? Because I have a theory having a startup, but also coming from the world of small business. How would you differentiate like a small business versus something that would be a startup that someone would need to raise capital for, or just even bootstrap to try to raise capital? Because a lot of people get that start from that do raise capital from that first family, friends. A lot of people don't have those connections. So for the ones that don't, how do you differentiate if you're just a small business kind of person, or if you truly are trying to have something that's somehow backable?
I think any business, theoretically, any business is backable if you have a good idea, if you have a good concept. But for me, I need to see traction in a company. I'm not going to put money into a company that is pre-revenue. And there are people who will. And so I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, for me, the odds are so heavily stacked against somebody who has not done any business that it's a losing bet for me.
Right.
Now, there are people like Jason Calacanis who's got an eye for things, and he could say, wow, that's a great idea. And I'm going to
Are you a fan of Jason? Because I love listening to This Week in Startups.
Huge. Yeah.
Okay.
But he's a guy who's got an eye for that. He can put people into an accelerator and he can really move them along. And so there are people who can support somebody like that. As an angel investor, that's pretty difficult. So if someone really has some traction, some sales, has been through some wars, has got some battle scars, someone who's shown grit. I ask people a lot of times, tell me something you've gotten through that you really question yourself and you really question whether this business is right for you. And I want to hear that story. If they don't have a story like that, I'm not going to look at them.
Okay.
So,
this is a question that we actually have from the audience is, what are terms that are important for whether you're approaching either VCs or angel investors? What are some of the terms or just things that they are looking for in the first 5 seconds? How should they be able to speak? What terms should they use? Can they abbreviate things to be able to let that investor, VC person know, even if it's just their associate, know that they know what they're talking about?
Yeah. I don't like to discourage anybody from chasing their dreams. At this point, I think the VC world is relatively broken. Unless you have $3 to $5 million of ARR, I wouldn't even bother approaching a VC. As far as an angel investor, I think you want to talk to them about your experience, about your passion, about what's brought you in your journey to believe that your product or what you have is going to change the world in some way.
Do they feel that it has to change the world? What if they just said, hey, I know these numbers, we can hit these numbers. It's not something that's going to change the world. It's something that would just make you money.
I think there are angels who would go for something like that. Personally, that's not enough for me. Everybody says, hey, I want to build this to $1 billion unicorn and cash out. It doesn't mean anything. We all have our dreams. Right. It's okay. I'm looking beyond someone's dreams. I'm looking at, hey, who is this person? What do they have? What's their path to really getting to a point of building a team, building what they have? It's very difficult if you're alone. If you're by yourself, it's very difficult. There was a time when I invested in early stage companies. And one of the first things I'd ask them is, do you have key man insurance? And sometimes I'd get people scratching their heads. Sometimes I'd have people laughing at me. If something happens, if someone's putting money into your company and you're alone and something happens to you, you're done. If you're going to invest in yourself and get key man insurance and ensure the people are investing in you, are you really investable? To me, the answer was always no, they're not.
So I don't see a lot of gray hair. So you seem to be still kicking strong and going really hard. What is the next big thing that you're trying to do? Is it just take companies to the next level? Do you have another company in you, a fund maybe? What do you have coming next? Or what do you feel that you want to do next?
No, I'm pretty clear in my vision that if I want to work with 10 to 12 companies at a time, I want to see them. I can work with 10 to 12 companies next year and I can help 3 or 4 of them grow 40%. that would be a really great achievement for me.
So nothing in like specific.
I think that's pretty specific. For a business owner, for an entrepreneur, I believe that the goal should always be some degree of freedom. Okay, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to put a team in place. I'm going to free up my time. Instead of working 60 hours a week, I'm going to work 35 or 40, but I'm going to make more
Oh,
money.
that's actually a little different. A lot of people are like, they want them to go 60, 70 hours.
No, no, look, people build a business to build their life, to, to build the life that they want, to raise their kids, to put them through a good college, to have a life they want. The cycle for an entrepreneur, and this is something I struggled with, is to delegate. You put a good team in place, you trust them, they can do the things that either you're not good at or you don't want to do. And then you free yourself up, you free your creativity up, you free your productivity up, you become a stronger leader, a stronger owner, and you create freedom in your life.
You mentioned
Purpose
delegation.
of the business.
How do you feel about a lot of the technology that's been releasing between AI? I'm a big fan. I actually just got the Apple Vision Pro. I'm still a Quest owner. There's so much technology being released. And with talking about founders reducing their time, what are your thoughts about like the automation of things, AI? Do you believe in it? Are you against it? Like from an ethical standpoint?
I have ethical concerns about AI. Typically, early adopters of something like AI are people who are criminals. A lot of them. There's a lot of scary things about AI. In a lot of ways, a lot of these things are shiny objects. So a shiny object is, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this and it's going to make me millions. You're doing and who you're being in your company. That's what's going to make you millions. AI is a tool.
Mhm.
So a tool can help you to what you're doing, but it's people who say, this is the tool and it's going to create my world. I think they're deluding themselves. You have to focus on yourself first. You have to focus on, as a business owner, who you're being as a leader, who you're being as a vendor, how you're treating your customers, how you're treating your employees. Those are the things to focus on. AI can help, and probably bringing in, if you can afford it, either a consultant or a specialist or an employee who can really help deploy AI to help you that's going to help you be more efficient. But is it going to transform your business? No, the transformation comes from within.
Mm. So would you say you're not recommending the companies that you work with to implement AI if they're a SaaS, or to find some way to implement AI into
No,
the
I wouldn't say
companies
that at
to?
all.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that at all. But use it as a tool, not as the end all.
Got you. Okay. So what do you think about Apple Vision Pro, the release of working inside virtual reality? Do you see that as like a shiny object as well? Or do you see any kind of actual use case in terms of working in the spatial computing?
I think it can be its own business. And I think there will be people out there who make it their business, either by consulting or creating product around it. I think mainstream companies that rely on that, again, I think it's the same as AI. It's a tool. It's a tool to make you more efficient. It's a tool maybe to up your game by 10%. And whatever that percentage is irrelevant. It can help. But again, to throw everything aside and say, hey, this is our direction when it's really not your direction, I think would be a mistake.
Okay. What about the companies that are going to spurt from this boom of AI and virtual reality?
Yeah, those are different
Do you,
businesses.
do you see
Sure.
them as viable business options?
Sure.
Or do you feel that they're too easily relying on a different, like the crutch
Well, I
of a
think,
different product?
no, look, everything like this spurs creativity. It spurs growth. It spurs birth in companies. So sure, from that aspect, we might be in some kind of renaissance. But to take for instance, a laundry company and say, okay, AI company. No, you're still a laundry company. You're still serving your company, still serving your customers. You're still doing what you have to do. It's just tread light. I would just advise companies to tread lightly. That's all.
Okay. So with thoughts of you maybe starting another business? Let's say you could go back, but you'd be today. What company, if you had the time, would you want to build in today's?
I'm in love with the trades. I'm in love with, you
Oh,
know, plumbers, electricians, landscapers. Those are all great businesses. And I think what you see now is you see a lot of people who are very good at what they do, but they haven't made those great businesses. But those are things you're always going to need. And if my kids said, "Hey, I want to start a business," that's where I'd push them toward, because they're they're always going to be there. Contractors, construction people, not construction people, but people that come in and remodel a home. There's always going to be a need for that. They're aging. People need that. They need those services. They need people they can rely on. So those are great businesses.
oh man, we got to have you come back and talk about that part then, because that's exactly what we do. Like we handle the entire back office of what those small businesses do because we believe that they're good at what they do. You're a good carpenter. You're a good accountant,
Yeah.
lawyer. You're good
Right.
at the craft, but the
Right.
business is a completely different beast. And that's where we come in. But anyway, oh gosh, that's completely different. Liking the actual sweaty, grindy businesses, right? You started with a laundromat. Would you go back to do another laundromat or would you try to find something?
So I didn't operate laundromats. We operated in apartment buildings and colleges. We'd sign contracts with those institutions or
for the coin ops.
right to operate their laundry. Would I go back to that now? No, I would not. The headwinds are really heavy in that industry, and I would not go back into that business. It was a great business while I was in it, but I think the headwinds have gotten a little too heavy for that now. So no, I'd take over a plumbing company or a landscaping company, and I'd put together a team, and I'd get really good at what we did, and I would serve people powerfully and create a great reputation.
How would you compete against, the large market of increase of day laborers or cheap labor? There's been an increase of cheap labor recently. And how would you differentiate or be able to build, especially that's, I think, a big reason on why a lot of like plumbers and things get squeezed because of the increase of the discounted labor. What would you just, obviously we're just freeballing here. What would you
Sure.
say as
No,
being
look.
like your edge or your
At the end of the day, it's all about building a culture. It's all about building a culture. It's all about getting your employees enrolled in a culture. It's all about speaking the same language, having the same vision of your company, of how you serve at the end of the day, if I have someone who's going to come and cut my lawn or take care of my landscaping, and I know, number one, they're going to show up when they say they're going to show up. They're going to do a little bit something extra. They're not just going to push a lawnmower and leave all the weeds. And if I know they're concerned, I'm going to pay more. Now, that's just me. Not everybody will. Some people are going to shop for the lowest price, and that's fine. They can. But that's not the customer that I'm serving. I'm serving a customer who wants a little bit something extra, who wants me to knock on the door on Christmas and drop off a gift and say, "Hey, you know what? Thank you so much for letting me serve you. Letting me take care of you. What can I do better? What can I do better for you next year? How can we really make this something meaningful?" That's the kind of customer that I want to serve, and they're out there.
They are. Absolutely. My dad himself is one of those. He would drive past 5 different Verizon wirelesses just to go to a specific Verizon wireless so a specific sales rep could get his money because that was his commission. I'm like, oh, at that time, I just thought of it as, oh my gosh, but I grew up seeing it as he's loyal to that person. And that particular Verizon wireless has a customer because of him. Now, back then, I feel like the work ethic of a lot of employees was different. It was a lot easier to create a culture of positivity. A lot of days today, I don't think that the that business owners have access to the same quality of work ethic that they did back then. And a lot of people don't invest into that, oh, we're a family mentality within a business. what do you like, even in terms of consulting some of the businesses today, what do you advise them in regards to hiring talent or just even,
Well, you look at, and sports metaphors get a little overused, I think. You look at the great coaches in the NFL. Look, the talent is relatively equal. Look, some teams have great quarterbacks, some don't. But when you look at a roster from number 10 to number 53, the talent's going to be relatively equal. But it's a question of, hey, how do they get people to really buy into what they're doing? How do they get people to go? Nobody goes 100%, but how do you get people to go 85, 90%?
why did you know that off the bat, you said people don't go 100%. Why did you kick in to say, because that's realistic, but what made you say that and know that?
I know myself. Look, if I'm going 100%, I'm working 18 hours a day. I'm not willing to do that. Most people aren't willing to do that. Hey, if you have someone sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, at some point, are they going to look at their phone? Of course they are. They're human. Nobody's going to give you 100%. But if you got a good culture, you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you five minutes every hour to look at your phone. Okay. At 9:50, like something goes on the computer. Here's your 5 minutes. Stand up, walk around, look at your phone, make a call, be back at your desk. Or if they're on a job, hey, take your 10 minutes now. Just sit down, relax, write in your journal, read a book, do what you need to do, smoke a cigarette. I don't advocate smoking cigarettes, but whatever you do to relax. There's ways to build a culture where people know that you're human, that you care about them, that your work is important. And once you get there, you've created your own ticket. Doesn't really matter how much you charge at that point.
Usually before we have to get someone out here, one of the big things that we like to ask them is, what are you promoting? Where can we find it? What's the website? Give yourself almost like a shameless plug.
Okay. So my name is Scott Kallick. You can find me at scottkallick.com. Relatively easy. My email, skallick58@gmail.com. Reach out to me. Love to hear from you. I always give people time when they want something. Happy to talk to everybody. If you're a business and you're highly motivated and you want to change, let's talk. I'm not interested in talking to somebody I'm not interested at this point in just taking someone's money. Yeah, I want to work with highly motivated people who want to change their business and want a better life for themselves.
Okay. You heard it here first. We're going to be able to find you. All the information will be in the description, guys. I hope you were able to find and learn a lot of gems. We're going to be back so much next week. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you later.
Thank you.